Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima tu'allimuna wa zidna bi fadlika ilman wa ta'aliman innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. So we left him off in the expansion of these Turkic areas. Did anybody want to read anything, comment on anything, question anything? Okay. So I skipped through a lot. He's in these different Turkic regions. We said here. So he said, I next proceeded from Bukhara for the camp of Sultan Ala ad-Din Tarmishrin, however you pronounce the name. It's a non-Arab name. And on my way, I passed by Nakhshab, the place where uh, the patron, I can't pronounce this word. So Abu Turab al-Nakhshabi is from there, right? So you have to understand that just like there was many great early, fuqaha and muhaddithin from Central Asia, also a lot of the great ulama and the awliya from Central Asia. Central Asia is a really important place, like super unbelievably important place. If you look at the book Risala Qushayriya, like basically all of those people are from Central Asia. There are exceptions here and there. But otherwise, like it's a really Mubarak. There's like a extreme barakah, and a part of it just on a material level, is the fact that there's just more people there, right? So we mentioned before in the Ibn Khaldun class that civilization doesn't happen in the desert, right? You don't have a bunch of people living in the desert. It's not really a thing. So the only reason why like the desert can be populated, let's say in some places in the world today, is through things like fuel, stuff like that. But otherwise, like there's nothing there. So so you go to Central Asia, there's grass, there's water, agriculture. So that makes people. When there's people, there's good people and bad people. So just obviously you should have a larger body of people. So you're going to have a larger, chance of having some certain amazing people like Abu Turab al-Nakhshami. So it's from this place I proceeded to the camp of the Sultan, the king of Ma Wara an-Nahar, right? So Transoxia, right? Past the Oxus River, right? This is a powerful prince who has at his command a large army and is remarkable for the justice of his laws. The territories of this king occupy a middle station among those of the four kings of the world, who are the king of China. I mentioned this last week. He succeeded his brother Jagatai. I think it's Chakatai. I think it's like Chakatai, who was an infidel. So you have to understand, Mongols came in, Mongols divided up, right? That's classic system. King, Alexander the Great takes over, and then those little things break up into small pieces, and then bit by bit, these small pieces became Muslim, right? That's basically how it happened. All of whom sent and has succeeded to his elder brother. I think it's Kobai, not Kobak, right? So often in it's like like bake. Like in Jordan, they refer to somebody as a bake, but the word is bay. So I'm not quite sure how it all works out, but somehow often Kobai, I think it is Kobai, who was also an infidel. He was nevertheless just and much attached to the Muslims, to whom he paid great respect. So you have people who respect Muslims and then actually become Muslim. It is said that this king Qubay was one day talking with the doctor and preacher Badr ad-Din al-Maydani. When he said to him, "You say that God has left nothing unmentioned in his book." The preacher replied, "And it is even so. Show me then," he said, "where my name is excuse me, to be found." The reply was in the passage, في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك كبك كبي. In which form, yeah. So Quebec, Kobe, right? This astonished him, and he said, "Bakhshi, babakhshi," right? Means like, uh, at least in Farsi, babakhshi is like, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what he means by bakhshi. I think he means like sorry. That is well done. I spent some days in the camp of Tarmishrin. Upon a certain day, however, I went to the mosque which was in the camp, and the camp they call Urdu, right? So we mentioned that before. The word Urdu means army camp in Turkic languages. And also, what language are they speaking? They're talking different Turkic languages. So you can imagine one ethnic group, the Turks or the Turkic people, they already have variation, right? Just like the Germanic people, right? Think about an analogy between like the Germanic people who are in kind of like Germany, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, right? And a little bit to the south, right? They spread into England and then they spread into the world, right? So if you can think like, okay, like Dutch spreads to South Africa and English also spreads to South Africa, and Dutch and English are pretty close compared to many other languages, right? They're both Germanic languages. Similarly, you have these peoples, these Turkic peoples who are kind of similar ethnic and linguistic group and cultural group. And then they spread out in different phases, okay? Different stages becoming Muslim, right? And and then, so if you think like the Turks themselves, they are not exactly the same as Turkmenistanis, not the same as Kazakh, but these are different tribes, and their languages are very, very similar, right? And so then these languages evolve over time, etc., right? So they're speaking kind of Turkic languages. For I had heard that the Sultan was to be in the mosque. When the service was ended, meaning Jum'ah, I approached in order to pay my respects to him, as he had heard of my arrival. He was pleased with me and treated me very respectfully. After this, he sent for me. I went to him and found him in his tent, right? And there paid my respects to him. So notice they're living in tents because these are proper Turkic people, right? In a yurt. He then asked me of Mecca and Medina, Jerusalem, Damascus, Egypt, and also of Al-Malik al-Nasir, the king of the Iraq and Persia. To all of which I gave suitable answers and received remarks of distinction. One of the odd things that happened respecting him was that once, when the hour of prayer had arrived, the people were assembled in the mosque. The Sultan delayed. One of his young men coming in and said to the priest Hassan, I don't know, so Hassan ad-Din, I know this, Al-Yari, right? No, this looks Turkish. Well, the Sultan wishes you to wait a little. Upon this, the priest got up and said, I ask our prayers, and said, I ask our prayers here for the sake of God or for Tarmashirin. Is it with an N, right? Not an N. Yeah. So basically, do we pray based on when our ruler says or when God says? He then ordered the muezzin to proclaim the prayers. So the Sultan came in after two prostrations had been performed and went through his prayer at the extremity of the part in which the people stand, which is near the door, etc. Where they usually leave mules, and there went through what he had missed. Right, he missed, basically he was catching up on two rakats. He then sat down in the oratory, the priest by his side, and I by the side of the priest. He then addressed me. When he said, "You go back to your own country, say that the doctor of the Persians sat thus with the Sultan of the Turks." Um, that a poor man of the poorer Persians thus did with the Sultan of the Turks. This priest it was who succeeded in reducing the king to the observance of all the positive and negative commands. Right. So basically go and tell them how, this is how the deen should be. This is how rulers should be. Right. The deen is above a law, above the rule of the king. You pray when the prayer time is, not based on what the king wants. The Sultan very much respected, loved, and obeyed him, but the Sheikh accepted of no gifts from the king, nor did he eat anything but what was acquired by the labor of his own hands. So this is the key. This is the key attitude, right? When things change. When does religion become a joke? When basically it's when you put the worldly authority over that person, you know. So let's say, for example, someone like myself coming from Jordan. In Jordan, Jordan obviously is heavily controlled by certain countries. I don't need to mention their names. And so you have a ministry of the Ministry of the Government called Ministry of Fatwa, right? Ministry of Fatwa is underneath the ruling establishment, and the ruling establishment is underneath other ruling establishments, if everybody understands what I'm saying, right? So ultimately, when you're giving fatwa, you're giving fatwa on the authority of that higher ruling, you know, basis. So it can become a joke or it can become ridiculous, right? Like, so Sheikh Nuh Ali Salman, he was like the former Grand Mufti of Jordan. He was the ambassador to Iran. He was the Mufti of the armed forces. And he tried his best to do what he could do, and he was a very, very religious and very scrupulous man, but eventually resigned because there's a certain point where it's like, this is just stupid, right? And so, but when is it healthy? When the religious people can point the finger at the government and say wrong, and then when the rulers listen. Does that make sense? So there's this nice situation where there's no rebellion, but the ulama have not been bought out. Notice he hasn't been bought out. He doesn't accept any gift from the king, nor does he eat anything from him. Right. So this is one of the problems then, is when you're in the West, you are always beholden, right? Is there any country like that? I don't know. I don't know. But you are basically always beholden to somebody. You know, you're always backed by somebody, unless you're nobody. So that's the thing, is basically staying nobody. But then the problem is, if you stay nobody, nobody listens to you. You know what I'm saying? So like, do you stay nobody and just have your very small influence and nobody's going to bother you and you can do the small good that you can do, or do you times your benefit by 1,000,000 and then have to deal with everybody saying, so like Sheikh Abdul Malik Saadi, I wouldn't say one of my teachers, but one of the people that kind of attended his class, they asked him to be the Mufti of Iraq, and he's like, on the condition that I don't represent anybody. I don't represent the government. I don't represent this organization. I don't represent anybody. And they're like, no, because everybody wants to control, right? Everybody wants to be like, he's our guy. Okay, so this is a good situation you're in. And we'll see there's other scenarios that are not like that. There's other scenarios we'll see, like when we get to Delhi, we're going to see how religion is used against the people by the government. So as this Tamishrin, it may be remarked, had broken some of the statue of his grandfather, Genghis Khan. So that's his grandfather, right? Who had published the book entitled Al-Yasa. I don't know what this is, Al-Yasak. The prohibition which enacted to whoever should oppose any of these statues should be put out of office. Sorry, had broken some statutes, not statues, statutes. Now, one of the statutes was this, that the descendants of Genghis Khan, the governors of the district, the wives of the nobles, and the official army should assemble upon a certain day in the year they call Al-Tawa, the feast. And that should the emperor have altered any one of these statutes, the nobles should stand up and say, thou hast done so and so upon such and such a day, and hast made an alteration in the statutes of Al-Yasak. And therefore thy disposition deposition is a necessary consequence. So basically, he made this rule like, keep these standards, keep these things, and whoever breaks them, any ruler that breaks them, get rid of him. They are then to take him by the hand and remove him from the throne and place in it another of the descendants of Genghis Khan. And should any of the nobles have committed any crime, he is to be duly adjudged on the occasion. So basically, there's this yearly kind of alignment of things. Now, Tarmashrin had entirely abolished the observance of this day, which gave which gave very great offense. Sometime, therefore, after we had left the country, the Tatars, together with their nobles, assembled and disposed him, appointing for a successor one of his relations, and to such an extent was the matter pressed that Tarim Mashrin took to flight and was put to death. So obviously, there's some, it was hard that whole transition is not easy. It's not like everybody became Muslim and it was easy, right? So transition is never easy. It's never going to be easy. There will be people who have to take the bullet, but people don't want to take the bullet, so they don't want to change. I then proceeded to Samarkand, which was a very large and beautiful city. Without it, without it, meaning outside of it, right? He's speaking like somewhat archaic English. Without it, outside of it, is a tomb of Qutham, Ibn Abbas, Ibn Abbas's brother, who was martyred on the day it was taken. He went to Nasaf. So this is An-Nasafi. Has anybody heard that name, Nasafi? Tafsir An-Nasafi. So a lot of huge Hanafi scholars from Nasaf. And then I went to the city of Tirmidh, Abu Isa Tirmidhi, right? And then we passed Jayun, I think it's called. He puts Gihun, I think it's called Jayun, past the river, over the river into Khorasan. So he's now going back. He's now going back to the west. Then he arrived in Balkh. It has not been rebuilt since its destruction and by the cursed Genghis Khan. So again, Genghis Khan, and what did they do? They totally destroyed Central Asia, right? But it's going to come back, right, bit by bit. Then he goes to Balkh, and then he goes to Kohistan. What does that mean? Any Farsi speakers here? What does Kohistan mean? Koi. Koi means mountain. It's like Dagestan. Dagestan or Tagestan. That's Turkic for the land of the mountains. Kohistan is also the land of the mountains. Then he went to Herat, which is we're now going again. We're going back east. We're going back west to Herat towards Iran, to Herat, right? So obviously back then there's no Afghanistan and in Herat. There's no Afghanistan and Persia and Iran at that time, which is the largest inhabited city in Khorasan. It is the largest. There are four which are now inhabited, namely Herat, Nisapur, which is in Iran today, and two in ruins, namely Balkh and Maro. So Maro, this is really, really important, right? It's called Mary. I think we showed it to you last week, right? Mary, Mary, or Merv, Merv, right? That was the biggest city on the face of the earth for 100 years, right? Really, really important. So, and from Herat, I went to right? Jami, right? The Jami Masjid in Herat. So Mullah Jami, for those people who heard of that name, Mullah Jami. It's a famous textbook that we study in madrasa, Mullah Jami. That's him, big scholar. He says, from this place I went to Tus, which is the largest cities in Khorasan. In this, the Imam al-Ghazali was born, At-Tusi, right? Yusuf, where's Yusuf? At-Tusi, right? That's, who is his name? Forgot his name now. Who's At-Tusi? The Najmuddin At-Tufi. I'm missing the two. That's not. Yeah. And from this, I went to Mashhad. And okay, so I go to Mashhad. Then I went to Nisapur, so now he's in the middle of Iran. They call it the Little Damascus. Here I met Sheikh Qutb ad-Din and Nisapuri, the learned and accomplished preacher who took me to his house. It had happened that I had purchased a slave. The Sheikh said to me, sell him, for he will not suit you. And I sold him accordingly. I was told after a few days that this slave had killed some Turkish children and had been and had been executed in consequences. This was one of the Sheikh's great miracles. From this place, I went to Bustam, Bustam, the town which the Abu Yazid al-Bustami is from, and other places, etc. Went to another place. In his mountain, there is a cell inhabited by an old man whom they call Ata of Evliya. What's Evliya? What do you think that word means? Evliya. If you change the E into an A and change the V into a W, Awliya, yeah? Ata al-Awliya, the gift of the Awliya. That is the father of the saints. Oh, Ata, this is like Atabek, like this is Turkic, right? Ata means like father, father of the saints. It is said that he is 350 years old. So how do we deal with a statement like that? Are you obliged to believe that personally? It is said that he is 350 years old. You don't have to believe that. Okay, what if somebody who's upright and reliable says that? Right? So this is an important thing, right? You're obliged to give the benefit of the doubt. Because basically, what is the reason? Let's say, for example, if I tell you a miracle, I said, look, this is what happened yesterday. Yesterday, I was driving, okay, and I was awake, and I've never told you crazy ideas, crazy things before. You know, I don't tell you crazy things. Let's say I tell you, for example, I was driving, and then I was driving my car, and then suddenly I switched into my wife's car, and she switched into mine. And then suddenly I was like, oh, we're not. I was like, oh my God, that's not, why am I in this car? And she's like, why am I in this car? And I came home like, what on earth happened? So if I told you that, right, and you didn't believe me, given what you can assume about me, and given your experience of me speaking, your only reason for not believing it is because you don't believe in miracles. That's your only reason. So it's actually haram to do that. As opposed to somebody's always telling you crazy ideas, or it is said, right? What's the source for that? I don't know. So you're not obliged to believe that because it is said, right? But if somebody who is upright and reasonable person, they don't come with crazy ideas every 2 minutes, right? And they tell you a miracle, you're actually obliged to believe in that miracle, right? When I saw him, he appeared to be about 50 years old. Um, okay. He told me that every 100th year he had a new growth of hair and teeth, independently of the first, and that he was Raja Aba Rahim Ratan of India, who had been buried in Multan, in the province of Sindhia. I asked him of several things, but very much doubted as to what he was, and do so still. Wallahu a'lam. I next arrived in the city of Barwan. Uh, in this place, I met the Turkish Emir Baratay, and the largest and the fattest man I've ever seen. He treated me very respectfully and gave me some provisions. I then went to the village of Al-Jarh, and thence from there to Ghazna. He's calling it Ghazna. Uh, the city of the warrior of the faith against India, the victorious Mahmud al-Ghaznawi, the son of. So notice his name is Mahmud, and he's the son of Subuk Tajin, uh, Tagin or something like that. So note these are Turkic people. Okay. So the Moguls are Mongols, right? His grave is there. The place is extremely cold. It is 10 stages distance from Kandahar, meaning okay. We next left Kabul, so then he's going to Kabul, mostly in ruins by this time because of the Mongols. It is inhabited by a people from Persia who they call the Afghans. Isn't that interesting? So, like, we have to understand that there is this mix of people in Central Asia. You've got Turkic people and you've got Persianate people, and then you've got something else as well, right? Like a bunch of other things. So, like, what are the Pashtuns? Are they Persians? No. Are they Turkic? No. Okay. Are they Indian? No. Right. Their language, so they are Indo-Europeans, that's for sure, right? But we have to understand that basically, like, there's this continual mix. Like Indo-European is one thing. It's like some kind of meta group of people who kind of had a shared culture, shared language about 5,000 years ago. And then they basically spread out and change and change and change. And you get the Persians, the Greeks, the Germans, the Indians, etc. They're like, and the Turks, these are like one people, right? And then in the midst of these things, you get a bunch of other stuff as well, like totally different people, you know? That you can't really ascribe to this group or that group. So like Albanian, I think Albanian is not, as far as I know, it is not. It's like Indo-European language, but it's in its own group totally. Like it's not actually related. It's not Slavic. It's not Romance. It's not this, not that. I think it's like it's in its own category totally, right? So who when you say Afghans and Afghanistan is a new country, right? But these as an ethnic group, like what is an Afghan, right? Are they the Pashtuns? Are they Persian people? Are they? I don't know. So anyway, the point is, it's been destroyed by the Mongols. We next left, and then we got two Panjab. What's this? What do we call it? What do we call it today? Panjab. Punjab, right? It's Panjab, right? The five rivers, right? Okay, from this place, the informers wrote of our arrival to the court of the Emperor of India. It is a custom with them that everyone who enters India with a wish to see the emperor must be described in writing from this place, stating the particulars of his person and the object he has in view. Da, da, da. Okay, now we're going into India. Mountain of Solomon, where is it? Oh, there are mountains and violent people. Da, da, da. The largest mountain is called the Mountain of Solomon. It is said that when Solomon had ascended this mountain, he was approaching India from it, and saw that it was an oppressive country. He returned, refusing to enter it. Yeah. No, 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 most of these stories are not going to be true at all. Going to be legend or something else. I mean, we're not saying it's not true. We're saying we don't have any evidence that it's true, right? We're not saying it's actually false. Okay, let us now return to the description of arrival in Delhi. So he's going to go. If he's going to Delhi, he's just going to go straight southeast. Is that right? Where's our map? 1 second. From the Punjab to Delhi. Here's Multan. Oh yeah, it's not too far. Yeah, you're right. He's going like this. So I don't know what kind of route that they take. Here's Lahore. So where are the actual Punjab? Where are the five rivers themselves?
Um, they're right there. So they flow right next to Lahore.
Next
If
to
you zoom out a little bit, yeah, there. If you start counting now, like wow, these like long lines, one, two, three, four. If you, I think it should be
Oh, I
one.
see. Yeah. So you
Yeah,
have
you
one. Is that one? That's not one though.
you can switch to the terrain one, like the natural terrain one. This is more like there should be a natural terrain in the bottom right. Yeah,
Terrain. There we go.
should be.
Not that clear.
But yeah, you see those little blue dots that you see,
Yeah.
um,
These
right
ones
next to.
here?
Yeah, that's the River Ravi. Um, it shift. Yeah, that's one. And then as you keep shifting left, you'll find more. This flows in through India, and that's where
Okay,
the
so
big.
this. Oh, I see. So okay, so they're not all in one place though.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like the spans. There's like five of them that then now converge in southern Punjab. If you go down in South Pakistan, they
Yeah.
converge into a single river, and then they flow into the Indian Ocean.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so here it's getting bigger next to Multan. I see. Yeah, look, this is huge then, right? So that's going to be really wide. And here you have a huge Karachi. Okay, okay. Um, so anyway, if you look at the fact that it's called Punjab, right? It has a Farsi name. Why does it have a Farsi name? It has a Farsi name because of the cultural influence of Persians and the Turks. So the Turks basically took on Persian as a language and then brought that to what's it called? To India. Otherwise, they're speaking two different languages, right? I think in India they have something like 50,000 recognized languages, right? So you have to understand that the default of everything is we like to simplify things. Like Afghans either speak Farsi or Pashto. It's like actually there's 25 recognized languages, officially recognized languages in Afghanistan, let alone the unrecognized ones, right? And same thing in India. It's just that's the default. In England, right? In England, you have lots of variation, right? Ways of speaking, all sorts of things. And in France, right? In France, they used to have Languedoc and Languedoc, right? The people who say oi and the people who say ok for yes, right? Do you say ok? But no, they say oui, right? But it's like ok and oi, right? The Languedoc, Languedoc. My mum growing up in Switzerland, there is a language that they spoke on the street and a language they speak at home, two different languages, right? And those languages you would think they're like maybe just kind of like colloquial Italian and some of that. Like my mom's from the Italian border in Switzerland, is actually Celtic. So that's from like thousands of years ago. It's like some kind of like remnants of the Celts mixed with Latin, mixed with Italian, mixed with this, mixed with that. And it's like, what on earth is that? And it sounds Italian, but it's not, right? So the variation is the default, right? So we're trying to understand these things, like trying to put people in categories. It's useful, right? But it's always a oversimplification. There's just like much more variation than you would imagine. But on a simple level, Turks become Muslim. Turks take on the Turkic people take on Turkish or Persian as an important language, and they take it and they export that to India, basically. That's why you have like all these stands and etc. So let's now return to the description of Delhi. Da da da. I also thought Delhi was further to the east. I've been to Delhi, but I thought it was further to the east. So it says. So it says, when we arrived there, the vizier having previously met us, we came to the door of the sultan's. So there's these two words, haram, which is a sacred place, right? Haram, which is sacred, is an adjective, and harim. So the word harim is an inviolable place. So usually the word haram is a translation of harim, right? So you refer to this is his harim, meaning his wife, or this is his harim, meaning the place where he keeps his women, right? That's called the harim, right? So I'm not quite sure what the word is here. To the place in which his mother, al-Makhduma Jahan, resides, right? The served one, Makhduma. The vizier, as also the Qazi, right? This word is English, by the way, right? Qazi. Qazi means a Muslim judge, right? There's many words that when we speak English, we're like, oh, let's say mu'adhin. In English, the word is not mu'adhin, it's mu'azzin, right? Muezzin, muezzin, right? And it's not called an adhan in English, it's called an azan. So there's certain words that are in Arabic that don't come in English. We will usually transliterate them and usually put them in italics, right? So a term, right? But there are certain words that have been in English for a long time, right? English speaking people have interacted with the Muslim world for a long time, and they have certain words. Like it's not called a mi'dana or a minara. It's called a minaret, right? A minaret. That's the word, right? Mecca is not spelled Makkah. It's spelled Mecca. That's how we write Mecca in English. So he is a Qazi, right? And we talk about Kismet. Kismet is a word in English meaning destiny, Kismet, right? He met his Kismet, right? So there's certain words like that's the word that we use, right? And so we shouldn't use a Qazi is slightly different maybe, but anyway, by default we shouldn't use transliterations in English when the word exists in the English dictionary. These paid their respects. Da, da, da. The Queen Secretaries are then registered. These presents informing of them. Da, da, da. After this, dresses of honors were put on us, and we were ordered to withdraw to such places as had been prepared for us. We made our obeisance and retired accordingly. Right. This service is presented by one's bowing the head and placing their hands on the earth and then returning, right? So we have to understand that like tilting the head is okay, but bowing, like here in Malaysia, for example, they will do things that kind of cross the line. So one thing is, for example, kissing someone's hand. That's fine, right? Sunnah to kiss the hand of somebody who, in the eyes of the Sharia, deserves respect, an elder, whatever, right? You don't do that to like I don't know, some big shot who's a millionaire. You don't do that. But anyway, so someone just because they got lots of dunya, don't respect them just because of the dunya. That's not. But things like so, what they'll do here in Malaysia sometimes, they will like instead of kissing your hand, they bow almost to that level. Now that's like ruku'. You can't do ruku' to people, right? That's not acceptable. So there's certain things like that's culture, you know, moving, bump, knocking, turn, tilting the head a little bit, various things. But when it gets to the level of sujud or ruku', like that's not acceptable. It seems like it, yeah. It seems like he was in the category. So I wouldn't say because he was a scholar only, but because he was in the category of important person, meaning politician, scholar, um, something like that. Allahu A'lam. So then it basically amazing entertainment. During this time, in the absence of the emperor, a daughter, huh? During, 1 second. During this time, in the absence of the emperor, a daughter of mine happened to die. I don't know what the context is here. How does he have a daughter? Maybe I think it's something wrong here. I think it's like a daughter of his, not a daughter of mine. Because he says the emperor's distant. Da, 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 da. Nevertheless, the vizier had an answer from him on the morning of the day which the funeral was to take place. His orders were that what was normally done on the death of any of the children of nobility should be done now. On the third day, therefore, the vizier came to the judges and nobles, who spread a carpet and made the necessary preparations, consisting of incense, rose water, readers of the Quran, and panegyrists, right? People saying things. Oh, she was this, she was this, she was this. When I proceeded with the funeral, I expected nothing of this, but upon seeing their company, I was much gratified. The vizier, on his occasion, occupied the station of emperor, distributing victuals, food to the poor, and giving money to the readers, Quran readers, according to the order. Uh, the emperor's mother sent for the mother of the child, gave her dresses and ornaments exceeding 1,000 dinars in gold, in silver. Um, basically, they arrived. So when the emperor sent to inquire whether there was any among us who wished to take office, either as a writer, a clerk, a judge, or a magistrate, saying that he would give such appointments. Each, of course, gave an answer suitable to his wishes. For my own part, I answered, I have no idea either for rule or writership. I don't want to be a clerk. But the office both of judge and of magistrate, myself and my father having, but the office both of judge and magistrate, my father and my fathers have filled. Meaning, like, so my father was a judge and I was a judge, and he studied. These replies were carried to the emperor, who commanded each person to be brought before him. He then gave him such appointment as would suit him, bestowing on him at the same time a dress of honor, a horse furnished with an ornamented saddle. He also gave him money, appointing likewise the amount of his salary, which was to be drawn from the treasury. He also appointed a portion of the produce of the villages, which each was given to receive annually according to his rank. When I was called, I went in and did homage, paid homage. I greeted him. The vizier said, "The Lord of the world appoints you to the office of Judge of Delhi," right? Meaning the emperor, calling himself the Lord of the world. He also gives you a dress of honor with a saddle horse and also 20,000 dinars for your present support. He has moreover appointed you a yearly salary of 12,000 dinars. So if you think about what that is, 12,000 dinars. So 20 dinars, 20 dinars is 20 dinars is about $5,000. So, right, times that by six, right? Now we're talking 30,000 dinars. Times that by 1,030. What is that? So, so we said 20. What's 12,000 divided by 20? Is 600, right? So 600 times 5 is 600 times 5 is what? Is 300,000, is that right? So a salary of $300,000, is that correct? So I'm kind of like out of it right now. Is that the right? Is that the right number? So he's on a salary of a he's on a salary of a doctor, right, or a surgeon in the States, right? And this is 700 years ago, right, in Delhi. So that's a ridiculous kind of money, right? That's probably like the equivalent of being on a salary of like $20 million a year or something. And a portion of lands in the villages, right, plus benefits, right, and will produce annually an equal sum. I did him homage according to their custom and withdrew. We shall now proceed to give an account of the Emperor Muhammad, son of Ghaith. No, notice his name, Muhammad, Arabic name, son of Ghaith, Ghaith ad-Din, Tole, however you pronounce this. That's a Turkic name, right? So we understand, right, that these people, Tughlaq, right? So, or it's not even a ghain, right? So in Arabic, we'll write it with a ghain, but it's not in, at least in Turkish, it's not a gha, right? So it's not, you know, it's like turlit, right? Or turla or turlak, right? It's not, it's like the word yogurt, right? Yogurt is Turkish. We don't say it's yogurt, right? It's not yogurt. The g is not really there. It's like a kind of toned down line. Anyhow, the point is you can see the source. So, you know, this is important. The Muslim, you know, the Andalus was falling. What's it called? The Mongols destroyed Central Asia, but in the ashes came Mughal India, right? Which had obviously problems, but a lot of benefits. So anyway, we don't have time to read too much right now. So if somebody can read about him, maybe summarize some things about him, some questions, some interesting things. Um, Being overcome, his flesh was roasted with some rice and thrown to the elephants to be devoured, but they refused to eat it. Right? Would do elephants eat meat? I don't think so. Anyway, if somebody can read through this, share some insights, summaries, etc., then we can go continue to the rest of. Um, he said, "It was my wish." So he's basically being sent to India, being sent to China. Okay, inshallah, could somebody do that, inshallah, or a number of you just go through the whole thing in Delhi, what's happening, because we are supposed to be, yeah, we don't have that many lessons left, and I would appreciate um, um, more insights. I don't know who's reading the book, who's reading the actual book itself, things that we've missed out, things that are important, questions, problems, issues, right? Notice this picture here. Like that's quite, you know, in the world we live in, nobody does that. Nobody sends up 50 slave girls to somebody as a gift, right? And we would consider that on multiple levels problematic, right? But who knows a historical situation where that happened in? That's very relevant to us as Muslims. Historical situation, females being given as gifts, like literally as objects as Muslims. There's two things that apply to us as Muslims.
Like in terms of the Sharia or like a
No,
historical event?
historically in the life of the Prophet ﷺ and the life of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam.
أدري يا شيخ.
So the Prophet ﷺ was he not sent he was sent fine horses and silk and two beautiful women from Egypt, one of them being Mary Qutbiyah. So the Prophet ﷺ, out of respect for them, he did not he gave one away because in the Sharia you cannot be you can't be married to two sisters, and you can't if you own two sisters you can't be intimate with both of them. You can't do that, right? So the Prophet ﷺ received the gift. He didn't say, Astaghfirullah, this is haram. You cannot give a female slave as a gift. He said, thank you very much for your gift, but the Sharia, out of respect for it's a human, it's a human being. She has human feelings, and so she can't. So you can't be intimate with these two females who are sisters because you will split that sacred human sorority apart. So he gave one to another Sahabi, right? But at the end of the day, a female was given as a gift, right? That's quite an important thing to put in our heads, right? Similarly with Sayyidina Ibrahim, right? Sayyidina Ibrahim, Sarah was given Hajar as a gift, and then she gave Sayyidina Ibrahim Hajar as a gift. So Hajar was a concubine of Sayyidina Ibrahim, not a wife, right? So very recently, this system has been cancelled. Very recently, like in the last 100 years, 200 years, right? Otherwise, the world has known there's a world of slaves. Slavery exists, and you could give somebody a slave as a gift, and you could give someone a female as a gift, right? So one concept is, this is not given to him, but this is a very important concept to have in mind. Am I promoting it? No. Am I even promoting polygamy? No, I'm not. Default polygamy is not a good idea at all. Zero. But it's important to understand where we are and where they are. Right? When you say a culture, meaning a system of norms and values, you do one thing. What is normal and valued in your world, and what is normal and valued in their world? It's a huge difference. Right? That'd be really weird. You find that really strange. So when you find things that are normal in Islamic world, you say that's normal, and then it's not normal in your life, there's something wrong with you. Does that make sense? So it's very important to understand those things, right? To, as a mature individual, to see contrasts and differences. What are different, and look at that difference. Like, sit with that difference. They live in a different world. Why is it different? How is it different? Right? And some things are irrecoverably different. We live in a post-colonial, post-industrial revolution world. They don't live in that world. So there are some things that are almost, we're not choosing to change things, and we can't even put them back, right? Wallahu alam. So anyway, we'll go through these things, inshallah. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.